NASCAR has recently had quite a deal of issues regarding the next-gen car, and with the recent injury for our driver Alex Bowman, there's a great deal to be concerned about. Let's provide a bit of context to these safety issues though. It is no secret that the wrecks that this new car has seen throughout the year have been even harder. According to this article from usatoday.com, drivers have been feeling the impacts this year more than they had in the past. Just listen to this quote from Denny Hamlin. He said, "It feels like I got beat up in a bar and someone was kicking me in the ribs while I was on the ground. The whole right side, it just felt smashed." He was referring to a crash that occurred during the regular season finale weekend at Daytona. We've seen drivers be shaken up after crashes, but we were getting lucky until the Kurt Busch crash at Pocono occurred. During a qualifying session at Pocono Speedway in August, Kurt Busch got loose and backed into the turn 3 wall.
Look at his brother, Kurt Busch. Still as good as he's ever been behind the wheel of a race car.
Yep.
And you'd think that Kurt could go as...
Hang on to it, Kurt. Hard into the wall.
Ironically, at the time, the broadcasters were talking about how good he's been this year immediately before the spin happened. You could just tell from the sound of the impact that it was a very aggressive hit. Unfortunately, as we all know, he was forced to pull out of the next race due to concussion-like symptoms, and eventually what seems to be probably the rest of the season, forfeiting his playoff opportunity and a run at the championship. This should have been a wake-up call for NASCAR. We saw crashes like this even before the start of the season. During next-gen testing at the Charlotte Roval at the end of 2021, we saw some hard crashes resulting in major damage to vehicles. I couldn't find crash footage for this one in particular, but this is the aftermath of a crash from Austin Dillon. Just notice how much the front end of the car is shoved inward, even bending the suspension to where the tire jutted out at about a 45-degree angle. Now that might not have shown the fragility of the next-gen vehicle to its full extent, but this driverless crash test at just 130 miles per hour could have been very bad for a real driver if they were instead behind the wheel of that car. The car apparently bounced off the wall much more than it should have as a result of the stiffness of the chassis. This video wasn't published until over a year after the testing was done, with some people claiming the crash test dummy would have died if it had been a living person. Thankfully, NASCAR did make some adjustments to the chassis in which the subframes were softened in order to improve energy absorption, decreasing the load on the driver during impacts. While this may have solved the rebound issue and did technically improve the safety of the vehicles, it was certainly not enough. And finally, all these issues became plenty more apparent as the chaos began to unravel at Texas Motor Speedway. To be honest, I was unable to catch this race as I was occupied with other activities at the time, but what I heard and saw from replays of the event were not pretty. The major incident that we saw from the race, and probably the worst NASCAR crash I've seen in recent years, involved the Rick Ware Racing driver Cody Ware. At first, I was skeptical about the crash because, after all, it is Cody Ware we are talking about. Ware doesn't have the best track record when it comes to dodging contact with walls or other vehicles. I watched the replay a few more times and realized that Ware was not the one to blame for the incident. We should be blaming NASCAR for the issue. Ware appeared to blow a tire and took a head-on hit into the turn 4 wall. The car seemed to absorb a lot of the impact, which I give credit to NASCAR as they have noticeably improved the durability of the car since testing. But the incident was made worse when Ware careened towards pit road, making contact with the wall no less than a few feet from the garage opening. After exiting the car, Cody collapsed on the ground and was taken to the infield care center on a stretcher. Unsurprisingly, he was reported as having concussion-like symptoms after the hard hit. You may be asking, why didn't he just hit the brakes? But you do have to realize just the extent of the impact he felt after the first hit to the wall. Cody apparently reported over the radio, "I need help." When a driver says something like that, you know that the last thing they are worried about is where the car is going to end up. They are simply fixated on the pain from the impact. Fortunately for Ware, he didn't actually end up with a concussion, but the same can't be said for another driver that crashed on Sunday, Alex Bowman. From watching this wreck, you might not think much of it. It was a pretty light hit to the wall, but do remember that these cars are traveling at over 150 miles per hour in the center of the corner, so any contact is certainly felt by the driver to an extent. However, this wreck should not have resulted in a concussion for the driver. The last thing I expected to hear from the news of NASCAR this week was that Alex Bowman was going to miss a race because of a minor crash the previous week. This finally was enough to piss me off and convince me to make this video. Why are wrecks like these resulting in concussions for drivers? This is seriously a bad look for NASCAR. The combination of tire failures and safety concerns is a deadly combination right now. Heading into Talladega, I am worried for the safety of these drivers. We saw a clusterfuck of a race at Daytona, with Talladega being even crazier, especially in the playoffs. I do not expect a lot of good to come from this race on Sunday. I do not see NASCAR making any changes in the remaining weeks, so I feel like it's up to the drivers to make a stand and voice their opinions about the next-gen car. NASCAR seems to be less pertinent on penalizing drivers for speaking their minds, so the drivers should use this opportunity to do so more frequently. Fans should voice their opinions too. The more criticism that NASCAR sees from fans and drivers alike, the more likely they will be to implement changes in order to fix these issues and uphold their image. What kind of changes should they make? I don't know. I'm not an engineer, so I wouldn't know the first place to start. But from a fan's perspective, I can look at something and tell that it's broken. And currently, I have the mindset that every wreck that occurs in the race might lead to a driver injury, because that seems to be the state of the situation NASCAR is in as a sport right now. They have a broken car. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Do you agree that the drivers should start to stand up for themselves? What needs to be done to fix these cars? I know I didn't cover a lot, so leave your opinions down in the comment section. Please hit that subscribe button. Currently, less than 1% of the viewers for this channel are subscribed. I might try to do more serious videos like this in the future if this one is well received. Suck my dick and call me Charlie.